They told you America was born out of a fight for freedom. That brave men stood up to tyranny, cast off the chains of monarchy, and built a land where liberty reigned. But what if that was never the plan? What if the very blueprint of America, the hidden intentions of its most celebrated founders, was never about freedom for all but control for the few? Before we reveal the truth, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Ancient Light, where hidden history comes to light. From the very beginning, the American dream was not a dream meant for everyone. It was carefully constructed, like a cage with invisible bars, dressed in the language of liberty, while silently preserving systems of power, privilege, and economic dominance. And the most shocking part, the Founding Fathers knew exactly what they were doing. Let's go back to 1776. The Declaration of Independence was signed, a bold rejection of British rule. But hidden beneath the fiery rhetoric was a dark contradiction. The same men who wrote that all men are created equal owned other human beings. They debated independence with ink-stained hands, while their slaves served them wine in candle-lit rooms. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, they spoke of liberty but lived as masters. Their idea of freedom had boundaries, and you were never supposed to cross them. Jefferson, the author of the Declaration, owned over 600 slaves in his lifetime. He fathered children with a woman he enslaved, Sally Hemings, and yet he wrote about the equality of mankind. Was it hypocrisy, or was it the real blueprint all along to sell the illusion of freedom while protecting a hierarchy built on race, wealth, and obedience? But it wasn't just about slavery. In 1787, when the U.S. Constitution was being drafted, the debates weren't centered around how to grant power to the people, but how to contain them. The founding elite were terrified of what they called mob rule, the idea that everyday citizens might actually have a say in government. So they designed a republic, not a democracy, with barriers at every level to prevent true popular control. The Electoral College, the Senate, the original system of voting, all built to filter the voice of the people through layers of elite control. And it worked. The only people truly represented in early America were white, land-owning men. Everyone else, women, the poor, indigenous people, Black Americans, were either silenced, erased, or legally defined as less than human. Even the Bill of Rights, often seen as a sacred text of freedom, was a compromise, a way to appease fears of government overreach while ensuring the economic and political dominance of powerful interests remained untouched. But there's something even more disturbing buried in the financial DNA of America. Have you ever heard of the phrase life, liberty, and property? That was the original draft, borrowed directly from British philosopher John Locke. But Jefferson changed it to pursuit of happiness. Why? Because property, in that context, meant owning people. It meant enshrining human ownership into the core of the American ideal. And even with the change in wording, the practice remained, protected by laws upheld by courts and justified by twisted theology. The founding blueprint wasn't a broken promise. It was a carefully planned structure, a hierarchy where power flowed upward and oppression trickled down. Take a look at the early American economy. The nation's wealth was built on stolen labor and stolen land. Enslaved Africans provided the workforce. Native tribes were exterminated or displaced. Every step toward American expansion was soaked in blood and betrayal. Yet schoolbooks still celebrate it as manifest destiny. The same Constitution that supposedly guaranteed liberty had an infamous clause, the 3/5 Compromise, which counted enslaved people as 3/5 of a person for representation, but gave them zero rights. It wasn't about equality. It was about increasing the political power of slaveholding states. The Founding Fathers didn't stumble into contradiction. They institutionalized it. And while they spoke of tyranny in Europe, they created a new kind here. One that was harder to see, because it came wrapped in flags, parades, and patriotic songs. The myth of American freedom was weaponized. Used to silence protest. Used to invade foreign lands. Used to tell the poor and oppressed that their suffering was somehow their fault. That if they just worked harder, prayed more, obeyed more, maybe they too could have a piece of the dream. But the system was never designed to let everyone win. The Federalist Papers, written to defend the Constitution, are often praised as great political thought. But in them, you'll find a fear of democracy so strong, it's chilling. James Madison warned that too much democracy would allow the poor to redistribute wealth from the rich. And so, the system had to prevent that. They weren't building freedom. They were building a firewall. Even the courts were rigged from the start. The Supreme Court, supposedly the defender of rights, upheld slavery in Dred Scott v. Sanford, declaring that Black Americans had no rights which the white man was bound to respect. That's not freedom. That's a lie written into law. And when abolition finally came, it wasn't out of moral clarity. It was political calculation. Lincoln himself admitted that his priority was preserving the Union, not freeing slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation was a wartime tactic, a blow to the Confederate economy, not a declaration of universal rights. And after slavery ended, the system simply adapted: sharecropping, convict leasing, Jim Crow, redlining, mass incarceration, voter suppression, economic manipulation. The chains were never broken, they were just made invisible. And while the myth of freedom was exported globally, through Hollywood, diplomacy, and military might, America itself remained trapped in the lie it told. Freedom of speech. Not if you challenged war. Ask Eugene Debs, imprisoned for opposing World War I. Freedom of the press. Ask the whistleblowers silenced by government crackdowns. Freedom of protest. Ask the civil rights marchers beaten in Selma, the students shot at Kent State, the water protectors at Standing Rock. The original blueprint never changed. It just evolved. Today, corporations pour billions into elections. The average citizen's voice is drowned out by lobbyists and billionaires. Schools are underfunded. Healthcare is a privilege, and yet we're told, this is the land of the free. But here's the truth most Americans never hear: you were meant to believe in freedom. You were never meant to have it. The founding of America wasn't the birth of liberty. It was the branding of it. A seductive illusion that keeps people loyal to a system that benefits the few at the cost of the many. But history isn't destiny. Once you recognize the lie, you can reject it. Once you see the blueprint, you can start drawing a new one. Because freedom isn't a gift from governments or a slogan on a flag. It's a demand, a fight, a right you claim, not something you're given. And the moment enough people see the truth, the system fears collapse. Because power only lasts as long as the people believe the lie. So now the question is, do you? If you're ready to expose more banned history and hidden truths, subscribe to Ancient Light, share this video. Leave a comment, speak up, because the more you know, the more you realize the past was never over. It's still controlling your future, but it doesn't have to.